Thank you, Anthony. Well, those street protests we've been showing you in Jacksonville and all around the country are bringing a critical mass of people together into the streets and into close contact. And as On Your Side's Eliza Powell reports tonight, the demonstrations are really sparking some fresh concerns about a second wave of COVID-19 infections, just as a lot of cities are beginning to reopen.
As hundreds gathered here this weekend in protest, city officials are looking at another set of numbers, particularly in the African American community. This weekend in Jacksonville, protesters seemed packed together, often chanting, which some fear is a recipe for a second wave of the coronavirus. It's a risk Mayor Lenny Curry acknowledged this morning.
Social distancing because of COVID-19, proper hand washing, suggestion to wear masks remain in effect.
Mayor Curry says a surge in COVID-19 cases as a result of the recent protests is a very real concern. He says though everyone has the right to peacefully assemble, they also have a personal responsibility.
While we're dealing with the issues around the protests, things we have to deal with, we've also got to deal with COVID-19.
The African American community has already been disproportionately affected by the coronavirus. According to the COVID Tracking Project, more than 21,000 African Americans have died from the virus nationwide, at nearly 2 times the rate of the rest of the population. Jacksonville City Councilman Sam Newby recovered from the virus, but is gravely concerned protesters don't understand the severity of the virus.
It was 2 times that I thought I was going to die.
Newby has no idea how he caught the virus and says though people are allowed to peacefully protest,
we need to have that social distance even when you protest, because like I said, you can stand by the wrong person and your life would definitely change.
While Newby is begging protesters to stay safe, Mayor Curry says that catching the virus is uniform across all ethnicities. In downtown Jacksonville, Eliza Powell, First Coast News, On Your Side.